Welcome to the Island Show. Today's February 1st, 2020. And for this island, we're doing one of probably my favorite island vacation destinations in the world, Majorca, which is in the Western Mediterranean Sea. So, Brian, tell us more about the geography of Majorca.
Majorca is a beautiful tropical island southeast of Spain.
I wouldn't really consider
About
it a tropical island, it's
well, sorry,
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean climate. I used the wrong word. I'm sorry. It's about 130 miles south of Barcelona, and the island itself is close to circular. It's 60 miles wide by 46 miles, and it's got a very nice climate. Highs of 80s in the summer with lows in the 70s, and in the winter highs in the 60s, maybe high 50s, and lows in the mid 40s. So it's far more temperate than most of Europe, and so it's an ideal tourist vacation for most Northern Europeans, specifically Germans and the Brits. You can have occasional stormy events in the winter with some snow that shows up on occasion on the mountaintops, and then hot, bright and dry summers that are exploited by beachgoers. Occasionally, it's extremely wet, and that time to avoid being there for all that rain would probably be between October and December. So, Nick, if you were going to go visit, how does someone get there?
The way to get there is you go through the Palma Airport, which is like the main airport to fly there, and it goes to a lot of places all over Europe. Like usually for an American, probably the easiest way to get there would be to go through Barcelona or Madrid, which goes to a lot of major US cities. And then you just fly from one of those places to Palma. But I mean, within Europe, you could fly pretty much to every major European city. You go Dublin, Moscow, uh, I already said Barcelona, Madrid, Paris, Seville in Spain. Uh, you could go there from Bordeaux and from London and Edinburgh and Brussels and all over Switzerland and Germany, and I mean the smaller UK cities such as Bristol and Liverpool and Manchester. You get there from Lisbon as well, and even Luxembourg and Denmark and yeah, basically all the major European cities you can get there to. Also, a few North African places in Algeria and Morocco direct. Otherwise, you just connect through Spain. And yeah, the best time to go there is in the summer because I know from my experience, I went towards the end of the season. It was like late September, early October was when I was there last time, and a lot of the towns just and restaurants start to completely close down. Like there's certain beachfront towns that are a little bit on the other side of the island from Palma that they're not even open for 6 months out of the year because not enough people are there. So it's not one of those places you want to go when in the down season where nobody's there because literally towns will close.
Yeah, I read that 28 million visitors show up for the summer season, which is a crazy number, especially when you consider the size of the the island and the number of people that live there year round. It's very low. Can you tell me more about what it's like there, as far as the people and the food,
Well,
etc.?
yeah, I mean the food is similar to Catalan and Spanish food. Apparently, on one of the other Balearic islands, Minorca, which we'll probably talk about in a different shows, where they invented mayonnaise. I mean, noticed the best food I had there was grilled octopus. Like, so if you like some more exotic seafood, um, Majorca is a place to go. I mean, I really loved. I didn't really eat octopus before I went to Majorca. Now octopus is one of my favorite seafood dishes. They have good paella dishes there too. A lot of it mixed with various fish, and a lot of it's like similar to Spain. It's very good ham and pork as well. For the rest of Spain, and they have for those who are into wine, they have a pretty good wine selection too in terms of food. And then in terms of like what else do you want me to talk about? Things to do or just like the vibe there? Like the tourist block is very Northern European, particularly German. Germans have almost double the amount of the next most populous country to visit there, which is the UK. A lot of people nickname Majorca Little Germany or Germany's tropical province because of how dominant German culture is. In fact, you probably hear more people speaking German than English there, and almost as much as Spanish and Catalan. It's everybody thought that my family was German going there because it's not very popular among Americans to go to Majorca. Like Americans, they go to the Mediterranean. It's usually either to Italy or to Greece, or if they go to Spain, they go to Ibiza, which is more the reputation of like the party island of the Balearics. But yeah, Majorca, um, I noticed it was very Germanic, and it's also one of the few places in Europe that I've been to, or might even be just in general, that you have like the big American style resorts. Like we stayed at a Marriott Vacation Club there, and you don't see things like that in the most of Europe because the cities were developed long before the invention of modern day resorts, so they don't have the space for those type of things. Whereas Majorca, they do.
When I was researching what people do there, it seemed to be split up into two different categories, and I think you can confirm this with me. Is it basically you're on the coast and you're living resort type activities, things to do, and lifestyles, scuba diving, going out on the water, the beach, versus inland activities where you maybe going to olive oil plantations or vineyards and or maybe there's a lot of very nice mountain roads, so it's very popular with cyclists. But I feel like it's inner island and out and coastal activities. It's very
I
two different
disagree.
categories.
I think well, people intend to do both. At least when I was there, we did both. Our hotel was more inland, it's in the middle of the interior of the island because it was a golf resort. I didn't play any golf when I was there, but there was that option. And we basically also with Majorca, I think it's one of the few places in Europe where you actually need to rent a car. They don't really have a good train infrastructure there outside of Palma. So if you want to get around and see all the different parts of the island, you need a car. So,
What's it like driving around on those tiny little streets?
well, I mean, the 5-seat SUV that my mother rented when we went was probably the biggest car I've seen on the island. It's a lot smaller cars generally. That's a European thing though. And uh it's yeah, I mean, it's a first world experience. Like it's like driving in like rural California. It didn't really seem that much different. They drive on the same side of the road as the U.S. and continental Europe. The roads there's not a lot there's a lot less traffic generally though. There's not that. I mean, I didn't really remember any times where we really got stuck in a traffic jam outside of Palma, where parking can be a challenge in Palma because Palma is like a lot of old European cities. It's really dense and it's the old cobblestone streets and all that.
But like you said, Nick, you were there towards the end of the season,
Yeah,
so that experience is subject to the time of year, maybe.
it's still really nice. The water was warm enough to swim without a wetsuit or anything like that.
But in general, the Europeans have a month of August to go places,
Yeah,
so it's probably terrible that month.
yeah.
But but I don't know that for sure. But I do know that whenever I'm working with people in Europe and it's August, nothing happens.
Well, yeah, that's Italy. The whole country takes the entire month off. I remember when I moved there when I did my semester abroad in August, and nobody was in town, and half the stores were closed, and yeah, everybody was just on vacation. It's just as a part of life.
Yeah, which is a different topic. I don't want to stray too far into that, but we should definitely have a nothing exempt episode on that type of it, like cultural norm.
Oh, that would be a good one. The live to work versus work to live. That'd actually be a good show.
Yeah.
Exempt.
So as far as like what's the deal with this island? Okay, the history is some people from the Levant made it there. There's some Neolithic peoples that we don't know very much about.
As a
It-
Phoenician colony originally.
yeah, it was under the control of Carthage for a while before the Romans took over in 123 BC.
Yeah, as part of the Second Punic War.
Yep. took it from Carthage when Carthage lost all of its overseas lands. Then the Vandals had it from the end of the Western Empire until it was actually reconquered by the Eastern Roman Empire in 534 AD. Then it was under the Eastern Roman hands from then until 900. So that's 366 years. That's a long time that it was still under Eastern Roman hands. It was attacked regularly by the Moors, and then the Moors finally took it over 900 AD. And then the Moors had it, and they built mosques, and they had it for a very long time, uh, about 300 more years until 1229 when the crown of Aragorn took it over. Uh, and then, as quickly as I can, 715, the Bourbons captured it. The island was invaded and fought over during the Spanish Civil War. And then moving in through modern history, it became a tourist destination in the 1950s. That's the 2 minute summary of the history of this place as far as who owned it. There's so much more history that isn't can't go into in this show about the important people and things that happened on probably
Yeah,
you could do a whole podcast.
a lot of famous creative types. Like in Europe, like if you were like a wealthy person or somebody who didn't have to be tied to a certain place for your job, if you got sick, a lot of the common treatment for illness back then was to go to a warmer weather place in the winter. And so there's a few people such as a famous classical pianist, Chopin, among others, who would come down there in the winter to recover from illness. And I could see why that's the case. Like if you're sitting in the cold, it probably doesn't help much if you're not feeling good.
Yeah, if I was like, let's say, uh, being expelled from a country for some reason, I would in Europe. Like I'm some kind of cousin that has some threat to the throne, but they can't kill me. I'd be like, "Can I go to Majorca, please?" That'd, that'd be my request.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to talk about. Like before we get into government and politics, in terms of things to do and culture that I hadn't mentioned. Um, the first things I'd like to mention, just on the demographic basis, it's mostly ethnically Spanish slash Catalan. You've got the main religion is Roman Catholicism. I already mentioned the food; it's similar um, to Catalonia in Spain, and very good seafood. But in terms of things to do there, uh, other things that are more noteworthy, they Mallorca has a lot of, of deep natural caves that like I did a cave tour there where you have like these really massive stalagmites and stalactites with these like still pools of water inside the caves, and some of them are big enough that you can like fit an orchestra and they'll perform there as part of a tour. It's pretty cool actually. Like if you like cave exploring, Majorca has at least four different like sprawling caves that you could check out. Uh, you also have it's one of the few places to still have a full size wave house flow barrel machine, which is this thing that creates basically a full size like surf barrel on and like a artificial machine. It's really fun. I used to do it all the time when I lived in Asia and when I lived in San Diego before they got rid of
Yeah, we've just walked into something that Nick is one of the world experts on, and that is the locations and availability of wave houses.
it. Yeah, it's one of my weird obscure hobbies up there with High Lion. Um,
Yeah, they keep shutting them down wherever Nick goes.
yeah, and what's diplomacy?
How many are left, Nick?
I think there's three or four left that I know of. There's one in Santiago, Chile. There's one in Singapore. There's one in Majorca, and I don't really know if there's a fourth one. I think there is somewhere. They used to have one in South Africa and San Diego, but those are shut down.
Yeah, people keep breaking their necks, and then lawsuits shut down the place.
Yeah, it's a real tragedy because it's really fun. But
Yeah,
yeah, I bet when I'm like 80 years old, I'd be talking. Oh yeah, there's that flow barrel machine, but too many people broke their arms, and so they don't exist anymore. Real kids these days.
I mean, all it is they take a jet of water, throw it up against a curved wall, and then you can jump on it and surf.
Yeah,
It's
but
it's super simple. It's yeah, you can hurt yourself.
I find it a lot more enjoyable than actual surfing, as blasphemous as that sounds.
Well, I get that it's if there was like no wait time to go do it, like if you could just go get up and start surfing, like that's the advantage is that
Yeah, that's exactly what
you,
it is.
you don't have to sit and wait for the wave or like go back and forth. You just get up and go back on the wave immediately.
Yeah.
And when you're tired, you go sit in a jacuzzi.
Yep.
So yeah, I get it. Are ready to go into what the governance and politics of this
Oh,
place are?
one other thing. There's two other things. One is a good place to buy like handicrafts, like specifically leather goods. Like I bought a few nice belts when I was in Majorca last time, and they're still good. 3 years over 3 years later. And then they have this area on the western coast, particularly a town called Dea, which I think is kind of the inspiration for Newport Coast and a lot of these like Mediterranean type vibes in the U.S. But it's this mountainous area filled with like a lot of chaparral type brush, and it has these like little estates that are converted into like hotels and restaurants that people go these days. So if you're like a scenic place that has some history and that rustic Mediterranean look with the culture to match it, I'd recommend going to Dea and the western mountain range of the island.
Yeah, I think that we can jump to the recommendation for anybody to go there. This sounds like a all around wonderful place. I get
Yeah,
why it's a popular tourist destination.
yeah, it's got something for everybody there. I really think so.
Yeah, and it's part of a first world country. It has infrastructure. It's a beautiful place. It's a great tourist destination. And speaking of who runs the show, I've been trying to understand this, and to the best of my understanding is that okay, it's an autonomous community of Spain under the crown. So Spain is still a kingdom in some yeah. It's one of the last remaining kingdoms in Europe. And inside of Spain, there are different autonomous communities, with each community having its own sets of rules and powers of what it's allowed to control, separate on its own from the state of Spain. So it's not like the states in the United States where you can say, I know what powers Colorado and California and Oregon have, and they're all the same. They get to do these things like on their own. Each autonomous community in Spain has slightly different rules to itself. And so when you hear the occasional news that somebody's trying to leave Spain, it's usually like within Spain they're trying to secede. It's usually an autonomous community that doesn't want to be under the crown anymore, saying that we're already autonomous, we just want to leave. And this is something that we've seen in Majorca from time to time. Uh, the powers that this community has in Mallorca are specifically responsible for culture, which I don't know what that means, roads and railways, and municipal administration, so they can manage the cities. The president of Mallorca is Miguel Encinia, known as, I don't know, more of Mallorca. I'm terrible with this, so please forgive me and correct me. I appreciate it. But this is a location that even the Spanish royal family loves to see in the summer. They have a residence on the island, and while most residences are administered by a national administration, the place in Majorca, in Palma, is under the care of the government of the Balearic Islands as a private residence and not used for official business. So there's some fun facts that you can take home, and tell everybody, and say, "Hey, I learned this on the Island Show." Where else are you gonna learn it? You have anything to add to that, Nick?
Well, in terms of the political things,
Yeah,
it's been allies with Catalonia because of similar cultural heritage, and they were both part of Aragorn in the original pre-merger Spain.
yeah. The Spanish people aren't one homogeneous group, and so the Catalan people are a subgroup within Spain, and Majorca's got a lot of Catalans on it. So it's hard to understand Spain from the outside. I think that you really need to be from Spain to fully understand the different uh, people groups and what it means to be a part of that group.
Yeah, I mean, you could also spend some time there, like whether it's like living there or an extended trip. I mean, I think my brother got a good understanding of it when he did his semester abroad in Barcelona. I mean,
Well, I think you get the understanding in like you can understand something from a book, but if you're not part of that people group, I don't think you can get that emotional connection that they have to it.
yeah, you're correct on that. So yeah, Brian, would you go to Majorca, and how does it rank in terms of the islands we've talked about in terms of places you'd want to go?
I think the only thing standing between me and a visit to Mallorca is money. There are cheaper places that I think are going to get to be above it in the list of places I'm going to go, and it's solely for reasons of money.
I don't think it's not that expensive once you get there, but given that you have a
You have
family,
to,
flying there's the challenge.
yeah, you got a family that you got to cross the world with, and you got to probably fly from like where I am in Colorado to probably the Netherlands or UK or something, and then take another flight down there.
Are you sure you can't fly from Denver to Madrid or Barcelona? Because you could do that direct from LA and from Dallas and a few other American cities.
It's not a matter of where the connection is. I don't really care about that. It's just the time and the ticket price, and just like when we went to Fiji, we would have never gone to Fiji except for that it was a free stopover. If I could ever have a free stopover in Majorca, I would. And a lot of times the cheapest flights are through Dubai for some reason. So I know that there's little chance that A380 could land on that island, but
Through Dubai to get to Europe? I've never seen that before.
I've seen the cheapest flight to get to Australia to Melbourne was through Dubai,
Yeah,
which
that
is
seems like a really long way.
it's a crazy thing that was the cheapest flight at the time. That you added like another 8 or 10 hours of flying or some crazy number of hours of flying, and it was still cheaper.
Yeah, but you have to figure out the time cost on that.
Yeah, traveling with little children, you're like, I'll save $50 and spend 10 more hours on a plane with my kids. Pass.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of for me going back to Mallorca, I think I would. Um, I went to Mallorca in 2016 with a few of my sisters and my brother and my mother, and basically the way we did it is that like we just everybody paid for their flights and like the family just did stuff together, but we're much older now, so we were able to do that, and it was a really fun trip. uh, I think I'd go back. I'm not sure immediately because there's a lot of new islands I want to check out first around the world and even within the Mediterranean. But it's rare for me to want to go back to a place, and Mallorca is one of the few places I do want to go back to in the world, especially among the islands.
Yeah, well, we're a little unique, Nick. We kind of want to go everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about New Guinea. Listen to that show.
We have aspirations to be the ultimate island tripsters.
Yeah. So if any people from Majorca or the Balearic Islands are listening to this and want to share your feedback, feel free to contact us.
Absolutely. And if you want to come and give us some feedback on the show, we'll give you a couple minutes and add it to the end of the show. We can not against that. So if you guys like this show, please get let us know on Reddit under Nothing Exempt, or you could go to Twitter at Nothing Exempt. We'll respond either way. If you appreciate the show, this is new on iTunes. You go to the Island Show and leave us a new review. We just launched this separate from Nothing Exempt show. And other than that, if you have other suggestions, we're always looking for what islands we should see next. And if you're from that island, that's an even better reason to do that one soon. Nick, is there anything you want to add before we leave?
No, I think we covered the bases on Majorca pretty well.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Talk to you next week.